Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask that you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Irene. And I just have to say that Jeannette is one of those people that once you meet her, you will never forget her. She is a huge, bright, shining light. And I was so fortunate because my son was a cheerleader at the University of Arizona. And I think a lot of you know that already. But he had been volunteering at Ben's Bells down in Tucson. There are 2 locations down there. And at the time, I believe there was just one. But the cheerleaders were helping out there. And when he passed, the cheerleaders had a bonfire for him for homecoming, and we were invited to come down. And at the end of the bonfire, one of the cheerleaders, Adelina, who had come to spend the night actually in this casita, in this guest house with a friend of hers, came up to me and said, "Miss Boisson, Jeannette Maré of the Ben's Bells Project, or Ben's Bells, has sent this for you as a gift for Morgan." And it was so beautiful, and I had no idea that Morgan had been volunteering. And so this has stayed with me. As a matter of fact, it was attached to his megaphone that I have in his room. And so I had to detach it just to show it to you this evening. But let me go ahead and just read a little bit about Jeannette. She is the founder of Ben's Bells and a Shining Light mom. She is also a communication scholar currently pursuing her PhD, who has been teaching kindness for over 20 years. Her world changed drastically after the sudden death of her son in 2002. In the incredible grief of losing Ben, the life-saving, world-changing power of kindness became her sole focus. With her heart broken open, she founded Ben's Bells, a nonprofit that inspires and teaches the intentional practice of kindness. Using social science, humor, and storytelling, Jeannette helps people learn the skills that they need to put their kind intention into action to strengthen relationships and communities. And I just want to also say that they are a huge part of the community in Tucson. They've also worked throughout the United States when there are things that happen that require an intervention of kindness. And I think that Jeannette will probably talk a little bit more about that. But without further ado, please welcome Jeannette Maré.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Elizabeth. I like to picture Morgan and Ben together because Morgan obviously is this amazing, strong guy. And it's a very, very comforting image in my head to picture, Ben on his shoulders. So I just want you to know that that's one of the images I hold of Morgan is with Ben on his shoulders.
Thank you.
I feel incredibly grateful to have this little bit of time with you all this evening. You are my brothers and sisters in this incredible, incredible life experience that is losing a child. And I want you to know that my broken heart is with your broken heart. And I hope that the conversation that we can have tonight will do something for you, that there'll be a moment that makes you think about something differently, or that makes you smile or makes you connect in some way with me or with the story or with something else that's going on with your life. I'm really happy that Elizabeth said I can do this really, really casually. I do a lot of public speaking, and I'm also a university teacher. So I'm really good with a PowerPoint presentation. And I'm really grateful to not be doing this talk that way. And so what I'd really like to do is just sort of tell you my story, tell you a little bit about Ben's Bells and what we do at Ben's Bells. And then really open it up for any questions or connections you may have made. And then we'll just sort of let the conversation flow from there. And Elizabeth will help me field questions so that I don't have to put on my reading glasses to find the chat. So as Elizabeth said, I'm a parent like you all that had what I thought was a pretty uneventful life beforehand. And then on a very normal day in my life in 2002, which just seems like a long time ago, but as you all know, time is strange, right? It's like it's forever ago. It's like it's yesterday, and it's like maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's actually a dream. I'm not sure. It's very strange. So in 2002, we were going about our lives and doing our jobs and living a pretty simple life. We had a son, Matthew, and he's our oldest son. And then on Matthew's 3rd birthday, Ben was born. So very exciting and special that the boys had the same birthday, and that became sort of a thing for them that they had the same birthday. And then shortly before Ben's own 3rd birthday, he had a cold. And I wasn't worried about him at all. I was home with him. We even had one of Matthew's friends was over playing, and the 3 of them were playing together, and I was doing stuff around the house. And Ben came up to me and he said he wasn't feeling great, and that seemed sort of normal because he had a cold. And then the next thing I knew, his eyes got very wide and his airway closed. And I immediately called 911 and started doing CPR. So my life went from being, sort of ordinary, to being in this traumatic situation. And then 24 hours later, Ben died. And the prognosis was, or the diagnosis was croup virus is what caused his airway to swell shut. So I don't have to tell you all that our world was just completely thrown into a tailspin that we did not anticipate, that we did not know what to do with. And quite honestly, I didn't know how to keep going, and a lot of the time I didn't want to keep going. But for whatever reason, I knew I had to keep going. And so fortunately for me and for my family, we were surrounded by amazing people who I always describe as courageous. And you all will understand that because it's courageous to come into that kind of pain. It's courageous to be willing to come into a situation where you don't know what to do or say, and you don't know, what will happen or if what you're offering will be helpful or not. Fortunately, I had a lot of people in my life who were willing to brave that discomfort and come in and really, really be with me and my family during those most intense days and weeks and months and years after Ben died. And I started understanding kindness in a really different way during that period of time. Because of course there were these people that could do that and who did it well. And then there were people that completely avoided me and my family as well. And then there were some people who tried to on the edges and who tried to support, but was more difficult kind of thing. So I started really understanding kindness as a skill set, right? That some people, for whatever reason, could come in and figure out what to do or ask questions or be willing to fail or whatever, and really be able to support me and my family, while others couldn't or wouldn't or didn't. And so I started being really curious about kindness. and also super grateful for kindness, right? Because that kindness that was coming toward me, my family, was absolutely life-saving. And I'm sure if I polled all of you, you would also have stories about how what you probably consider unremarkable acts of kindness were remarkable, were life-saving, were sustaining for you and your family, and hopefully still are. So I also realized during that time that kindness gets really a bad sort of reputation as being really soft, right? Soft and fluffy and rainbows and butterflies and, you know, maybe even feminine and possibly even weak. And that is not what I was experiencing. What I was experiencing was that kindness was courageous, it was powerful, it was life-saving, it was fierce, it was, you know, it was all of those things. And like I said, there was definitely a skill component to it. There were people who did the homework and like figured out how to support in a way that was actually supportive. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do in Ben's memory, as all of us do, want to do something in our child's memory, came up with this idea for Ben's bells. And you've seen what Ben's bells look like, right? So they're these really, really beautiful handmade wind chimes. And we started making these, you know, I designed it with a friend of mine. I drew it on a piece of scratch paper, and then we just started playing around with it, and we started making them in my garage. And we just started playing and making pieces. And more people would come over and sit and make them with us until we had these like regular get-togethers in my garage that sometimes would be 30, 40, 50 people coming together to make Ben's bells. And it was an incredibly powerful, important, cathartic time sitting around and talking together. And by the time the 1-year anniversary of Ben's death came around, we had created 400 Ben's bells together. And on the first anniversary of his death, we all gathered. We tagged all of those Ben's bells with a tag that says, "You have found a Ben's bell. Take it home and remember to spread kindness." And then we just set out all over Tucson. We divided up the town into maps, and we set out and we just hung those bells all over town. We didn't hide them. We just hung them randomly in a place where you would, you know, think, you know, what is that doing there? Why is it there? And that was really, honestly, going to be, you know, the end of that, probably, because I had I was faculty at the university at that time. You know, we had jobs, we had family, we had grief, we had all of these things to do. But what happened was the people who found bells had stories of their own about why the bell was important to them and why it was meaningful. And we had put a little, you know, makeshift website on the tag, and we started to get all of these amazing stories back from people about why that bell was significant to them. And what we learned was, what we know sort of intellectually, but when we're grieving really hard, we don't always remember, is that everybody, you know, had a reason why they needed that kindness, why they needed that remembrance, why they needed that reminder. And we heard all kinds of stories, from incredibly tragic to, you know, fairly mundane, but still real. And we realized we had struck something that was people were responding to. So we just decided to keep it going. And from that time, this project, Ben's Bells, has had this sort of amazing momentum and energy to it. And we've just kept at it. It has now been 18 years. And we've hung out over 70,000 Ben's Bells now. And Ben's Bells has, as Elizabeth described, we have 4 physical studio locations, but our educational programming is used in every state in the nation and in several countries across the world. So the Ben's Bell is the symbolic centerpiece of the work we do at Ben's Bells, but the heart of the work we do is what we call kindness education. And that's where we really have a serious conversation about what does it mean to be kind and what does kindness look like. And we do that programming in schools. We do pre-K through college, university. We do it in workplaces. We do it for, you know, help families and neighborhoods and other community groups really understand, you know, what is kindness, what isn't kindness, and how can we all do better at this? Because one thing we know for sure, and as Elizabeth read in my intro, I'm a social scientist, and I was a social scientist going into all this with a master's degree, and now I'm getting my doctorate. So this is what I'm really, really interested in is, you know, why and how kindness is so vital to us as humans. So we are a social species. We are a connecting species. And when we don't connect with each other, when we don't have these strong relationships, we suffer. And we suffer physically, and we suffer mentally, and we suffer emotionally, and probably spiritually as well. So from a social science perspective, I just became fascinated with, you know, how do we do this better? And so that we can have improved relationships, and so we can have increased well-being, and all of us can, you know, get sort of the most out of this life that we can get, no matter what our situations are. So pretty quickly, I started to uncover some of the misconceptions about kindness, because like I described after Ben's death, I really felt this sort of fluffy rainbows and butterflies kind of thing was doing a disservice to kindness. So one of the biggest misconceptions about kindness that we identified, and that's been written about in the literature, is that kindness is not the same as being nice. And that's a very, very important distinction because niceness is more about sort of maybe pleasing people, keeping things really comfortable, maybe sweeping problems under the rug, right? I mean, how many of us have said yes to something when we should have said no, right? Just because we want to please somebody, or, you know, so we think somebody can benefit us somehow. So, you know, maybe Elizabeth asks me to take on a project for her at work, but I'm already super stressed out with my own life and my own responsibilities, but I just say yes anyway, right? So that behavior would be nice, but it wouldn't be kind, because kind is really about the greater good, the greater, you know, the greater health of both Elizabeth and me and whatever organization we're working with. So if I'm just nice, I'm actually going to end up probably resenting Elizabeth for asking me. I'm probably not going to do a great job on the project. I'm not going to see my family enough. I'm going to be more stressed out. It's going to cause more suffering and stress. So niceness can actually cause more suffering and stress, whereas kindness, even though it may be difficult in the situation to have an honest conversation with Elizabeth saying, you know, I wish I could help you with this, but I can't take on anything else. You know, let me help you brainstorm some other ideas. That might be a harder conversation to have in the moment, but is definitely a kinder, will have a kinder outcome for both me and probably for her as well, and will be sort of a greater good sort of thing. So kindness expects more from us, and kindness requires that we learn from each other and listen to each other and really understand each other a lot more than niceness does, right? I'm sure. So my background is in linguistics, and I'm currently studying communication. So I'm really interested in language and the words we use and the effect of the words we use. And one of my experiences after Ben died, again, if we were face to face, we would be able to bounce some of the stuff off of each other easier, but I'm sure you would all agree with me that there were often times, maybe too often times, and still are in your grief experience, where people said something that they intended to be kind, but that did not feel kind. Will you people nod if you've had that experience? Okay, yeah, right. So another one of the things that we learn about kindness is there's a really big difference between kind intention and actual kind impact, right? And what we're asking at Ben's Bells is for people to think about this deeply, so that when we intend kindness for each other, that kindness actually results in kindness. And it's not just my side of the equation, right? As the kindness giver. So if I intend kindness, I really want my kindness to be received as kindness. And as we know, as grieving parents, there's a whole lot of things people say that don't land as kind. Just a couple things like, at least you have another son. At least he died fast. God had needed a little angel. You know, and I can go on and on and on, right? And so intellectually, I knew people's intentions were kind when they said this sort of thing to me, but as the grieving person in that situation, I shouldn't have to analyze intellectually. I should be able to experience sort of emotionally what's going on for me in that moment. So those of us offering support, we want to help people, motivate people to want to do the work they need to do in order to be able to do kindness well, because kindness isn't kindness unless it actually lands as kindness. And so as I went on with this, there just more and more questions kept coming to me, and especially this idea between intent and impact. And of course, this doesn't always only show up in the grief situation, right? Where a supporter tries to offer a kind communication of some sort to a grieving person, but we do it, to people who are different than us, or whose culture we don't understand, or whose life we don't understand. We will say something that we're intending as kind, and it may not be received that way, right? We white folks do that to people of color a lot. Fortunately, we're starting to become more aware of that, and we're starting to learn and have a little bit of a different awareness about how some of the things we say are received. And that's exciting. That's exciting. We should not feel bad that we need to learn things. And it's actually a very, very exciting thing to learn about each other and learn how to support each other better and learn how to do kindness well. When we do that, the connections that we make with each other are real connections, and they are powerful connections. And even if we just have sort of a quick interaction with each other, or sort of a short-term interaction with each other, when we do this well, those interactions can be incredibly, incredibly powerful. So, I guess my work and I'm no longer the executive director of Ben's Bells, which is a really, really good thing. I am a teacher and social scientist, and I was doing a lot of that as Ben's Bells was smaller and was growing. But by the time Ben's Bells got bigger, I was very much being an administrator, which is not what I love to do. So we have a new executive director of Ben's Bells. She's been around for about a year and a half now. And so I'm able to sort of settle into what I love doing, and frankly, working and talking with and listening to and supporting grieving people is one of those areas that I really, really want to have more time for. So I'm really grateful that Elizabeth asked me to come spend time with you, and that I get to spend time with you. So that was a mouthful. So let's take a pause right now and see, Elizabeth, if you have a question or a thought, or did something connect in your brain, or anything?
Well, first of all, I just want to tell you that people are saying, I love this. What a lovely idea. This is Polly. Rosie's saying, that is so beautiful, sharing the love that you have in your heart with others. God bless. Amazing. Rose is saying, hi from San Diego. I love this. Kindness works. It brings joy. And then Paula is agreeing with you. She's saying, those types of things that people say, like, at least he didn't have children. At least he didn't let's see, at least he did not have, I guess, more children. Or so I guess that what people are doing is agreeing with you. I would love, and I don't know if you have one handy with you, if you could show us a picture of Ben. Of course you do.
Okay, so Ben's the little one in front.
Yes, he's absolutely adorable. So if you have this on speaker view, you can see, oh, now I'm talking, sorry. You go ahead and talk.
I talk, you guys can see it. Can you see him? Yeah. So you can see from this picture, so there's Ben, and then here's his big brother, Matthew. And this picture really, really captures the difference in their personalities. So Matthew is a little bit, quieter and stuff. And Ben was very, he was a little wild man.
And he still is. He's still a wild man, and he's helping you every step of the way. I would love for you to tell a little bit more about what you do around the country, though. And this was when you were the executive director of Ben's Bells, in terms of how you go into crisis situations and help out.
Sure. And actually, that is not really our mission to do that, but we and we actually cannot just respond to tragedies. It's not what we do. But there was back when there weren't so many mass shootings and stuff, we had a mass shooting in Tucson, if you remember. Mm-hmm. And so Benzbells had already been around for quite a while by then. And so when the shooting happened in Tucson, which was, 6 of our beloved community members died in that shooting, it was incredibly humbling and beautiful to see how people turned to Benzbells. And they came to us as a place to be in it, right? People brought their kids, they sat at the studio, they painted Benzbells, they talked about grief, they talked about difficult topics. You could see, before the shooting in Tucson, it was like our community loved Benzbells. They thought, oh yeah, it's great, I found a bell, that kind of thing. But after the shooting in Tucson happened, it was if the community understood it at the deeper level for which we founded it, right? At this idea of, when we're stripped, bare, when we lose one of our people or more than one of our people, when we are stripped bare, what do we have left? We have each other. We have each other. And again, I like to look at us as animals. Sometimes that offends people, but we are mammals, and it's important to realize how we have evolved to really need each other, right? And so people understood it at that level after the shooting. And something sort of interesting happened after that time in Tucson around Benzbells, because they took it more seriously. They took the serious side of the message that I explained, not the fluffy stuff, not just the fun stuff, not just the, yay, I found a bell stuff. And so 2 years after that shooting, the shooting in Sandy Hook happened. And we have a program called Kind Campus, it's in schools, and people around the country can use it. And a school in Newtown, a couple of schools were actually using our program at that time, not Sandy Hook, but it's a very small community, and they were using it. So when that tragedy happened, we actually had people in that town who knew about Benzbells. And so we got, this huge reaching out from Sandy Hook to us. And we had to have a hard conversation at that point, because again, Benzbells' mission is not to respond to tragedy. It's not our mission. Tragedy is happening all around us in all kinds of ways. And we certainly do not aspire to be the people who decide what tragedy is or is not, good enough for Benzbells to respond to. When the Sandy Hook tragedy happened, near the same time, a van load of people who had crossed the border all died in their car, 6 people. Right? So a tragedy right here. So we had this really serious conversation around what is it that we do and what don't we do? And what we don't do is we don't go into communities and say, you need Benzbells, here we are to save the day. That's not what we do. But if a community reaches out to us and is really motivated, and there's some way that we can do something, we will do something. But the best thing that happens is when the people themselves who have been involved with Benzbells do something themselves, right? Because then it makes this much more sustainable. For example, Elizabeth, when Morgan died, the people used Benzbells to honor him. And that's ultimately how it works best, because then we can scale it to everybody. But in that situation, there was just this energy that happened. And so we ended up realizing that the Tucson community also needed healing still from our own shooting, and that helping Newtown was going to be very therapeutic for the Tucsonans as well. So we made a whole lot of bells. So in Tucson, we were very loud about it. Come down, make bells, commune, talk, grieve together. But then when we were on the Newtown side, we were very quiet and stealthy. So we didn't make a fuss at all. Only the people that had contacted us they rallied their friends and family. So we had about 100 people there who helped us hang bells. So we flew out and we hung 1,000 bells around Newtown, and then we just left. Well, what happened was similar to what happened in Tucson when we started it, was that those bells found their way into people's hands and they meant something. And so then there was this energy, and the community really banded together, and we ended up training them, and now they are making bench bells themselves. There's a studio out there. They are, they are under our umbrella, but it's all happening out there, and it's funded out there and that sort of thing. So, we realize that bench bells are a symbol that can be comforting, and that they since they are not intrusive, right? So we don't force ourselves into anybody's grief or anybody's traumatic event. They're sort of a non-intrusive way to show love and support and kindness for people who are struggling. And really the bottom line message of bench bells is we're in this together, and what we can do for each other is kindness. That's what we control. We can control kindness.
Well, I love that. And I just want to mention that one of the stories that struck me the most about that whole experience was that there were a lot of kids who hadn't dared to go out of their homes after this had happened because they were very traumatized. And that maybe you could just tell the story of the little girl who went out for the first time.
Yeah, that one I will never, ever forget. Yeah. What is so gratifying to me, and again, humbling to me, is how powerful a symbol can be, right? How powerful, this material object. We always say by the time one bench bell is finished, at least 10 people have worked on it. So it's not like when you come to our studio that you sit and make one yourself and say, this is my bench bell. Instead, you make a piece that mixes with other people's pieces. So by the time one is finished, they very much sort of encapsulate this idea of community. And so to hear what they mean to people is really, really beautiful. And you should go to our website at benchbells.org and read some of the stories if you feel like you need a little elevation. So this one story that I think Elizabeth is referring to is this little girl who, obviously the shooting at a school terrified children, as it would. It terrified adults as well. And this one little girl had not left the house in a month since the shooting. And the very first time she left her house, very tentatively and with all kinds of support, she found a bench bell. And so she took that bench bell home, and they hung it on the footboard of her bed so she could see it from where she lay in bed. And her parents said it's become just a very, very important piece of her therapeutic, a therapeutic symbol in her processing of all of this.
And that's absolutely beautiful. And I also want to just let you know, Sandra's saying, and she's actually one of our new affiliate leaders in Boca Raton. I live in South Florida. A few years ago when we had the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, we saw so much kindness. Wish we had your beautiful bells here. Your kindness is contagious. Thank you. And I agree that you do have contagious kindness. But Kristen is also saying, do you feel Ben with you? Do you feel he guided you to creating the bells and focusing on kindness?
Oh, I love that. I'm going to respond to both of those things. First to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I described that the very best scenario is when the people, us, people outside of bench bells, use the bench bell stuff in order to support. And when the shooting happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, a high school here in Tucson, who is very active in bench bells, raised money to buy kindness coins. And kindness coins, I have one right here. Kindness coins are these small ceramic pieces. Am I big for you guys? Can you see?
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Okay. So this is another thing that people make in our studios. And the tag says, this is a bench bells kindness coin. Thank you for your kindness. Pass it on. So this is something you can purchase. They're $1, right? So we don't sell bench bells. You can't buy a bench bell, but we sell this. And so we also have a version of this that I want you all to know about in case it's meaningful to you, that has an in memory of line on it. So this kindness coin was given in memory of your person. You write the name in. So this high school in Tucson raised enough money to buy 3,000 kindness coins. They wrote the names of all of the students who were killed over and over again on 3,000 kindness coins and sent them to the high school in Florida. So that's the kind of thing that gives me chills, right? Where the people themselves are seeing an avenue to show support in a way that means so much. So where did all those kindness coins end up? You know, I don't know, but hopefully those things are being passed along. Ceramics are very durable, so they don't just go away. So those, I'm sure, are still circulating in Florida, and that makes me smile. We also, Benswell's does these big, huge mosaic murals that are kindness themed. And we were talking with folks in the area about doing a big Be Kind mural there. So these things can still happen. The second thing was about feeling Ben, and absolutely, all the time, regularly, he would be in college right now. So he died 18 years ago. So he would be 21. And I think he would be a U of A Wildcat, because I was, and his dad was, and his grandpa was, and his brother was. So I decided to go back to school in his place. Going back to school when you're my age is not a small thing, right? I had to take the GRE. I had to jump through hideous hoops to get in. And now I'm working my tail off while I'm in. And I could give up very easily, but that kid I turn to him regularly, and he is right there, reassuring me that I can do this. I know I'm brave. Losing him and surviving his loss proved that. He's with me all the time. I have, simple signs in nature that I depend on. Lots and lots of hummingbird encounters, like lots of hummingbird encounters, pretty much every morning. So yes, I turn to him. I very much feel like my relationship with Ben is present tense. And as a linguist, that was something I struggled with after losing him, was using the past tense with him, right? Which I did just now. He was a wild child kind of thing. But he's very much present. He very much is for me. I do still, picture him as the little guy, but his presence is enormous. So I depend on him all the time.
So can you tell people a little bit about how quickly after Ben passed that you were able to move forward and do what so you started this obviously that first year, but creating a nonprofit and actually moving into doing something that's it's a hard process.
It's really hard. It's really hard. It's really hard, and I actually don't advise it for everybody. I don't think everybody should start a nonprofit. I will tell you, as much as I love this work and everything, it was really hard, and I worked too hard, and I put too much stress on myself in a lot of ways through there. People ask me about when something happened in my process. I should tell you all, I have a personal distaste for the word journey. So not for anybody else to use it, but I don't like to use the grief journey for whatever reason. I don't know. I just don't like it. So I will say experience or process or trail. I'm a hiker. But the beginning of the grief process for me, obviously it has to be quite self-centered, as it does for all of us, right? We have to focus inward in order to survive it. And inward meaning our immediate family too, especially if we have a small child that we have to care for. One of the big sort of transitions for me was when I started realizing that I could help other people. Like I could sort of start looking outward. And when I could start doing kindness for other people, and my own grief wasn't always the center, that was a huge relief to me and a huge milestone, maybe a huge difference. And so that probably happened in the second year at some point, but I'm a very much a, high energy person. So I was just sort of doing from the beginning, but trying not to do in a way that was distracting me from the grief. And that's what was cool about Ben Spells, was sitting and working on Ben Spells was something to focus on, and it felt healthy, but it wasn't distracting, you know, it like in a numbing or a denial kind of way. So, so we started by being under somebody on another nonprofit. There's a wonderful nonprofit in Tucson. Maybe you all know it. It's called Tunadito. Tunadito provides grief support for families. And they provide support for families who are going through cancer treatment and stuff with a child or an adult. And so we were in a group there, a group called Children to Children for our son, Matt, who was 6 when his brother died. And that's where Bensville started. So we had that nonprofit to be under while we did the process of getting our nonprofit, which is not a simple thing, right? It took probably a year to get our nonprofit. And then it was small. There was no location. It was still, you know, my garage. And then we would set up at the U of A. And that's probably when Morgan was there, Elizabeth. He was probably there even before we had the location. And then we got a location and it grew. And then it just exploded. And I had to quit my job at the university, and it became a thing, right? 25 employees, that kind of thing. And that's when it started becoming a little less, I couldn't do the part of it that was really meaningful to me. And that's when I started to have to be an administrator. And even though there was a lot of that I really, really enjoyed and that was meaningful, it was a little bit soul crushing for me at times, because I definitely love the teaching, the being with the people, the having conversations, the thinking about things in different ways. The on the ground kind of stuff is what I like doing. I don't know if I answered your question at all.
Yes, you did, definitely. And I just feel like it's so important for people here to understand how this kind of thing can happen, that by helping others, we actually grow and help ourselves so much. And I know that so many people in our group do have nonprofits, have written books, have done so many different things in the name of their kids. But at the same time, just being able to reach a hand back and grab the person behind you and pull them forward helps us more than it helps that person. And so this whole idea of kindness is such an important thing for me on this journey, and meeting you and seeing that you were okay too. Although it was 7 years before Morgan passed, but it was such an amazing thing for me. Rosie is saying, oh, let's see, Paula's asking if Bensville's is a 501c3, which I believe it probably is. Yeah.
It is. Mm-hmm.
And Rosie's saying, I completely understand. I turned my grief into a nonprofit to give back to the community, doing great things for families, communities, athletes, scholarships, and awards, all in our son's name. This was and is tremendously therapeutic. His legacy as a D1 wrestler he never backed down. Now we help athletic students, high school, grammar, never back down, no matter what the situations are. So good for our hearts. I feel that whenever we do something good for someone, his light shines brighter, which is true, of course.
Absolutely.
And I just want to say too that there are ceramics of Ben as well, not just ceramics of beautiful mosaic designs. There is a ceramic drawing of Ben that was made that's absolutely beautiful as well. And I think that everyone here in Arizona knows about Bensville's, but even people in London, when my girls were studying in London, when my girls were in Paris, they'd see Bensville stickers on their backpacks. Do you have a sticker just to kind of show what that looks like, the green ones? I mean, it's spread throughout the world. Be kind, which is just, I have one on the back of my car. Both of my girls have them on, and they're magnetic as well as stickers, so you could put it on. And I just feel so close to this whole idea of being able to do something in the name of our kids to spread kindness. It's a beautiful idea. And again, it was such a shock to me to be able to get this bell. I also was very happy to be able to bring our group of Helping Parents Heal to the Phoenix location, and we probably had 30 parents there who were all making parts of the bells. So, you know, painting different parts of the bells that were going to be put together later on. And I also have gotten a lot of those kindness coins in memory of that we hand out at our meetings, because I know that that's also very meaningful for parents. So Rebecca is saying, this is the first time I've heard of Ben's Bells, but you have inspired me. I've had thoughts rumbling around inside of me of doing things to honor my daughter. Thank you for the inspiration, which is wonderful. And I don't know if it's possible for people to be able to get involved in Ben's Bells if they're not in Tucson or Phoenix. Is there any other way for people to do things to help out with what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of our programming is virtual anyway. And then we've done a sort of a COVID response to our programming. So if you have school-aged children, our Kind Campus program is not just available to schools, it's available to parents too, and it's free. So you would just go to our website, bensbells.org, and you can click on education, and you can find all kinds of different downloads and different ways to sort of get involved. Our mission is really about to help people understand the benefits of kindness, and then help people understand how to make the practice of kindness a way of life. It's something that we need to just kind of keep churning, because like I mentioned earlier, anytime we're in a new situation, there's probably something we need to learn in order to do kindness well, right? We don't want to just assume we know the best solution if we don't really know the people or the situation. So we have a lot of interesting things on our website that relate to that. If you're a social media user, definitely follow Ben's Bells, because we do lots of great, quotes and science quotes and questions to consider, and lots of different ways to keep kindness really salient in your life. And that's really the point of Ben's Bells. I use the analogy of a beach ball. And if kindness is a beach ball, Ben's Bells' job is to keep it in the air. We're just going to keep it in the air. And we encourage all of you to do things to do that as well. And like that's the car sticker, the car magnet, if you put this on your car, you will instantly be a better driver, right? Because you don't want to be a hypocrite, right? So when you stick this thing on your car, again, this is not rainbows and butterflies. We're talking about kindness is hard, and we're practicing fierce kindness, right? So when you put this on your car, it's more like you're saying, okay, we're in this together. I'm a part of it. I'm going to do my best, right? But knowing this thing is on your car, you're much less likely to be like, oh, I'm late for work. Nobody else matters. I'm just going to tear down the highway so that I'm not late. You're going to think twice because this is on your car. And I hope that you do, because if you don't, I will get an email from somebody who will say, somebody with a Be Kind sticker just cut me off in traffic. And I get those emails regularly. So really what the work of Ben's Bells is about understanding that when we say practice, we mean that very literally. It's not like, oh, practicing like this sort of, amorphous thing that's out here. It's like practicing. Okay, I'm going to intentionally call 3 people today, or I'm going to intentionally think of something creative to do to support my neighborhood during COVID. I've been making these like little arts and crafts packs and dropping them at the neighbors who have kids, that kind of, I don't have kids at home anymore. So trying to do, intentional, we use the word intentional kindness versus random kindness, right? Intentional, like think about it. And we're also not just talking about kindness when it's sort of easier, like to strangers and those feel good things like putting a quarter in someone's meter. We're also thinking about how do we do kindness when it's hard, right? And maybe that's with a close relationship. Maybe it's with someone in our family. Maybe it's with, someone we work with. And really thinking about what does kindness look like in this situation? And what can I do? What do I have the control to do that could make this situation better? So definitely look at our website. Sign up for our newsletters and social media and that sort of thing. And that's where we sort of pump out the ideas of how to make this a regular part of your life. And as Elizabeth mentioned, there is a very strong scientific basis that says that doing kindness is actually more beneficial for the doer than for the receiver. So kindness is super reciprocal. So you can count on, if you're feeling really low and you can muster the, the ability to think about somebody else and their needs and do something, and, in your head, dedicate that to your child. It's very healing. It's very healing. And again, this is not about just being positive, just be positive, just be happy. No, none of that. I reject that. But kindness will give you a greater well-being. And I, instead of talking about happiness, there's another emotion that we study in social science called elevation. Have you all heard that? It's an emotion really that's not about being happy, like cheerful, but it's about feeling meaning, like feeling connection. And as grieving people, we can get that, right? We can feel elevated. We can feel connected to somebody, or we can do something for somebody that makes us feel like, yeah, my life has meaning, my child's life had meaning. And so sort of aiming for elevation through kindness, instead of this idea of, just smile, just be happy, just be positive. No, it is not positive to resist these very real emotions. So accepting sadness, experiencing your grief, experiencing elevation when you can, experiencing joy when you have those moments. That is what we are called to do as human animals. And resisting those emotions is very, very difficult and detrimental to our well-being and our health.
That's beautifully said. And I just have to add that when I feel at my lowest, and I know that right now with COVID, everybody is going through those periods when you're feeling low, I always search for something that I can do to reach out to somebody else. And I don't want to sound like I'm a silly do-gooder, but I just feel so much better when I'm able to reach out and even just talk for a half an hour with someone that I know needs that talk, or be able to do something that I know will help someone else. And that's, I believe, the reason that we're here anyway. I think that this journey is all about love, and we talk about that all the time, that the reason that we're here right now, our kids are home and we're still here, we're learning something, we're in school, the way that you're in school, but all of us are in school and we're still learning something important before we graduate home. And so while we're here, being able to practice kindness as much as possible, and let everyone know around you that you care, not in a superficial way. Again, I think that you're right, that it's important to make a distinction between just doing things because you think it's the right thing and the nice thing to do, and doing things because it's the kind thing to do. And that's a beautiful distinction. So anyway, does anyone have any more questions for Jeannette tonight while we're still on? I'm so glad everyone was able to hear her. And as I say, I feel very fortunate that she was a part of my journey early on. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with Tucson, but Tucson has, probably not this year, but they have always had a Day of the Dead procession that goes through Tucson that's absolutely beautiful. And I have had the honor to be with Jeannette on those, and actually not only that, but full face makeup, as well as dressing up and just beautiful costumes, and carrying a picture of our loved one. And everyone has a poster of their loved one as they walk through town. And when Ben Spells walks through does the procession, they dance in front of a steel band, which is just amazing. I love steel band music anyway. And you get kind of tired by the end. I don't know how many miles we go. And then there are fireworks on a field. And it's such a wonderful way to be able to celebrate our loved ones in spirit. As a matter of fact, I don't know what that website is, Jeannette, but maybe.
Yeah, definitely. So it has been canceled for this year. But absolutely put it on your radar for next year. It's always right after Halloween. It's actually called All Souls Procession.
All Souls
And,
Procession.
yeah, and they purposefully don't call it Day of the Dead because there's actually different cultures. It's when you see it visually, it looks like Day of the Dead. But what's so beautiful about it is that, as you know, our American culture can be a little bit difficult around death, right? There's a lot of pressure to keep that stuff to yourself. And what I love about the All Souls Procession is that some other cultures really acknowledge death and really allow grieving people to be out with it. And it's sort of the most freeing place I could ever be with my grief. And because everybody is grieving something. And I don't know, there's just an energy. And we're talking, there are 50,000 people there. It's huge. So it's just this amazing spectacle, but it gets to your soul because it speaks to our humanity and to our, you know, and to this shared experience that we have that is death and the making sense of it and the experiencing of it. That is really spectacular. So I encourage you all to look it up, All Souls Procession. Many Mouths, One Stomach is the organization that puts it on.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's definitely something that's worth traveling to Tucson for.
Oh, yeah.
Not this year, unfortunately, but maybe hopefully next year. That would be wonderful. But I truly appreciate you coming. If there aren't any other questions, Cody,
can I plug one thing really fast?
Sure, of course you can.
If you're interested in the kindness stuff at a deeper level, I'm teaching a mini course at the university in the fall. It's a community course that people can have access to. Anybody can register for. So it should be really, really interesting if you're interested in this stuff. It does not have a specific grief focus, but it does have a focus on how to make the practice of kindness a way of life. So I can share that link with you, Elizabeth.
I would love that. We can put that at the bottom of the YouTube video. And also, so this is at the University of Arizona that you're teaching this, is that correct?
Yeah, but it's for the community. So anybody, and it's virtual, obviously. So it's 1 hour, it's for 5 weeks. It's 1 hour a week live online and then 1 hour recorded that you can do it whenever you want.
Wonderful. And Cody is saying, Cody is actually a Shining Light sibling. This reminds me of Earth Angels, very powerful messages, very moving. And personally, I can feel like he feels angels in the room. Thanks for the insights. He's amazing. Cody is just one of these. He's a sweetheart, although he's not got his picture on right now. But anyway, thank you so much. And I am so glad that you were able to come and speak to us tonight because I know you're incredibly busy. Tomorrow night we have Mabel Chan, who's going to be talking about her book that she wrote about Leo, and I'm very excited about that. But what we do before we sign off is that we always have everyone unmute themselves and say goodbye and thank you. So if you guys would like to go ahead and do so.
Thank you, Jeannette.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannette.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannette.
Thank you, Jeannette.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Signing.